Please mind the gap between the train and the platform.
Hello and welcome to Train Talk, the podcast where we discuss public relations topics on my train ride home from university. In today's episode, we discuss how we can control digital communications within the modern digital era. So without further ado, let's get this show on the rails. The digital world is a crazy place. Millions of users all have a platform to voice their opinion, and this can lead to digital messages being reinterpreted and misunderstood. Do you remember the Pepsi and Kendall Jenner scandal in 2017, where Pepsi lost complete control of their campaign due to their organisational message being reinterpreted and interpreted online? Within 24 hours, both Pepsi and Kendall Jenner were crucified as they were seen to undervalue the severity of the Black Lives Matter movement and other police protests that are so significant throughout America. Firstly, we are joined by two great academics, Badham and Vilma Valentini, who use their years of expertise within digital communication and public relation to talk us through their very own digital media arena framework. The second guest is Pradeep Narwal, who currently works for THG. This is a global digital innovator revolutionising how brands can connect to a worldwide consumer base. Pradeep offers a unique insight into how an organisation can remain in control of their digital messages, even when using an influencer partnership. Hello Mark and Vilma, it's great to have you both join me on the Train Talk podcast. Please could we start by you both introducing yourself and what you do. Vilma, please can you go first?
Sure. Hi. I'm Vilma Luomaho. I'm a professor of corporate communication based in Jyväskylä, Finland, teaching corporate communication and in charge of the business schools education side as vice dean.
My name is Mark Badham, and I'm a senior lecturer at Leeds back at university. And Vilma and I enjoy researching digital communication together, and I love teaching it. And Will is, one of my great students.
Great, and today's topic is how an organisation can control digital messages within the modern digital world. Now, this is a crucial area of discussion because digital communication has gone from a top-down linear model to a more omnidirectional model. So stakeholders' voices are more empowered, meaning they can generate their own messages about an organisation and spread them rapidly. Now, in order to combat this and maintain control of digital messages, you guys have created the Digital Media Arena Framework. Now, Vilma, please could you tell me a bit about this and the history of it?
Sure, Will. So the digital media arenas did not used to be an arena network at all, but it started off with different measurable forms of communication. I was working together with a colleague from University of Helsinki, Professor Elisa Juholin, and we came up for this book, Measurable Communication, that's a book in Finnish. We came up with all these different arenas, or places or media that you can measure. And Mark got a hold of it when he was working at JSBE, and he started further developing it. And he came up with this amazing idea of what if we map them on two axes and come up with how much control you have over the media and over the message itself.
So just actually going into the DMA framework, it stated that communication practitioners can no longer act as just a sender of a message, but they now must proactively engage and be facilitators and strategic improvisers. So Mark, please could you just explain this in a bit more detail and how this might help an organisation maintain control of their digital message?
Yeah, good question. Most people are familiar with the PESO model, PESO, paid, earned, shared, and owned. The Digital Media Arena Framework adds another 10 to that. So there's 14 at this stage, digital media arenas that are kind of, we call them media arenas because media typically tends to be a channel of two-way communication. So there's a lot of control over that. And traditionally, we've enjoyed that in public relations. But more and more in the digital world, we're seeing a lot of examples of forums or arenas where anyone can have a say. You and I can have a say about a product or corporation, and collectively we can bring damage the reputation of a corporation. So the DMA framework really helps to give PR people a better understanding of, the dangers, the nightmare scenario, the Wild West scenario in the digital communication environment where we don't have much control.
And if I continue on that, I would say that it also is a reality check for CEOs and leaders in organizations when they think, like, get me on page 9 of the New York Times and I want to be there. And instead they understand, oh, wow, okay, so this is not an arena where you can actually just product place yourself. Well, it is, of course, if you're doing sponsored content, but if you want to do journalism, in the sense that your story is newsworthy enough to make it there, you realize that this actually takes more work than just calling them up and letting them know.
Yes, it's definitely more difficult than what first meets the eye. Now, when an organisation puts out a digital message, the main goal is to drive high engagement levels, and this comes when the digital message is contributed towards. But what difficulties does this bring towards an organisation in terms of control?
So there are several difficulties that are associated with that. First of all, there is only one way to control your communication, and that is to have great service or good enough product to have people who actually recommend you, which is basically having faith holders in the world, meaning that there are people on all these different arenas that speak up for you and your organization and are able to call out any rumors or false information or misinformation that's out there. But that said, the biggest challenge, I guess, is, and most brands anywhere nowadays want engagement. I mean, even your toothpaste maker now wants you to engage. And this is not realistic in the sense that not everybody wants to engage with their toothpaste maker or any other organization and brand. So the biggest challenge, I guess, is matching what the organization values with what the stakeholders actually want and value. And that is more difficult than you would think, because most organizational messages end up being just spam in the digital realm.
Yes. So would you say that the communications that actually drive the highest engagement levels have the least organizational control, or is that not necessarily true? What do you think, Mike?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting question. I think so. There's always the risk, isn't there, when you are trying to get as much engagement, as much word of mouth of your product or your organization. It's been like that for forever, really. The bigger you become, the more known you become, the more of a target you can become, and so the more engagement you attract. And as Wilma said, sometimes engagement isn't necessary. So be careful with what you're trying to engage with, and so on. But yeah, in a simple answer to that question is yes.
Okay, yeah, that's through studying at university and being in your lectures. That's kind of the gist that I got, that the highest levels of engagement is actually the lowest level of control. So that in itself is a very complex situation to deal with. Now it brings me on to my next question, where can an organization be over controlling, and how can they know when to engage and when not to engage? Is there any pointers you would like to give in terms of what you'd say to an organization?
Yeah, it depends on the digital media arena, really. Yeah, so for instance, today there are a lot of memes or parodies that users tend to grab hold of to make fun of organizations, and rightly so. They have a right to do that. There's an example of, in 2023, McDonald's launched a campaign. We built a case study around this, Vilma and I, for a couple of things, and McDonald's saw that users just took over their campaign. They initially had wanted to promote
the
Grimace shake.
Grizzly shake. Yeah, Grizzle shake.
Yeah, the Grimace shake. Yeah, that purple character, McDonald's. And it's such a cute character, and yet people took it over and made it into these horrific nightmare videos of them drinking this purple shake and dying. And I can understand, people were having fun. I think it was the Gen Z that took over this. I think they created their own hashtag, Grimace Shake hashtag. And so there was no control really from that McDonald's, the PR and marketing team at McDonald's could have over this. But they at some point did decide, well, we'll take the risk, let's get involved. And I think they did it correctly. The Grimace character himself got involved by making comments, which were, a little bit humorous. They were willing to make fun of themselves. They were willing to recognize that they can't control. They didn't try to give the impression that they were going to try and take back control of that hijacked situation.
To almost answer the question, you would say it depends on the situation and also the DMA in question.
And also
Yeah.
on the stakeholders, like what are their values and what is their relationship with the brand or organization? Because if you're building on a very strong relationship that enables humor, then you're much more free to do things. But if the relationship is just exchange or not that strong, then it's a different game.
That's a great point, and I'd say it's something as a communication or a young communication practitioner, it's important to put yourself in the stakeholders' shoes. So even when looking at the DMA framework, you can look at it from their perspective as well as the organizational perspective, and I think that is really important because that changes how you would act in each digital media framework.
That's actually how I would summarize the McDonald's success. They were able to turn their boat around from organization-centric communication to stakeholder-centric communication. So thinking about the stakeholder first and then about their own pride or their own brand promise, etc.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think this short discussion has really shown how difficult it is to try and control digital messages within the modern digital landscape, and in doing so, it highlights just how much of an amazing job you guys have done by creating this DMA framework. Hi Pradeep, and welcome to the episode. Now the first question I'm going to ask you is how can an organisation actually control the message an influencer puts out? For example, do you provide a step-by-step script or do you allow them to have creative control?
Once we onboard them, definitely we provide them all the checks and balances. For example, we make a brief before the end of the month for the next month, keeping the local and global campaigns in mind. For example, in the month of March, we had the Holi campaign, where we make a brief about the content, what are the major dates, what are the major campaign dates we are putting in, along with the trading team. So we make sure that all the briefs have those content ideas, content briefs mentioned. So basically, just to summarize, we give them a boundary. These are your boundaries. Under, like, we have to play with your content in between these. Obviously, we don't give them step-by-step basics advice, but because definitely they are content creator, we give them a creativity freedom so that their creativity is not killed with our brief. But yeah, definitely giving them a basic idea what you need to create. For example, there's a new product coming in the midweek of the April, so we'll start the pre-buzz well in advance. We'll send the products to them before going out in the market so that they can create the content, and they send the content to us before uploading. I mean, it doesn't happen with every influencer, but the major ones where we put it, like we ask them to specific for the specific content, we ask them to make the content and send us so that we can put them in collab if we are if the content is as per the brand guidelines, and keeping all the checks and balances in control. So currently what we are doing is we ask content creators to post and send us a collab request, and we accept the collab request a later date or after 4 or 5 hours when the reach is there, or you get good comments, so that people get to know about the brand without posting with the brand.
So you actually almost no control at the start of the message they're going to produce, but you just pick the one you would like to connect with. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's kind of the other way around as to what I would have thought an influencer partnership would actually be like. Now, once you have collaborated with the influencer in this way, how can you maintain a level of control over what they send and receive in the comments, even though they don't work directly for the organization?
Only the specific content creators who's, for example, ambassadors, we pay them, so they are our brand ambassadors. So if they are posting any comment on the comment section, they ask us, or if they feel there is one comment which needs to be taken care, they send us the screenshot. On the other hand, our CS team is actively working 24/7. And if they see any comment coming out which is not good for the brand, it happened in the past many times where even our followers or customers, they are pretty active on the social media, so they also send a screenshot, and our team keeps checking all the messages we receive on Instagram or any other socials. So all the people are much more vigilant and much more proactive to take care of these comments. Obviously, it has happened in the past, obviously, and everyone learns from their own mistakes. There were few creators which posted the content not with us, but for the brand. tagging us, and there were few comments, so we have to remove them. I mean, we completely stopped working with them. So a brand image is the main priority.
Yes, and I think that's really interesting. So once an influencer partnership is made, an organisation can maintain a level of control by having an in-house team that proactively engages within what they send and receive, but also through reliance on stakeholders who proactively engage and report it back to the organisation. Now, if there's one key message from this podcast, it is definitely that an organisation must proactively engage within their digital messages to maintain a level of control. And that is all for today's podcast. We hope you learned something new and enjoyed the journey. See you next time.